Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Rashida and today we'll be talking about the top 5 questions that I get asked whenever I tell anyone I am a PhD candidate. The first question that I get asked all the time is, what can you do with a PhD in nursing? Honestly, I don't think I could live long enough to fully answer that question, because what can't you do with a PhD in nursing? You can work in the hospital setting, you can work in administration, you can work as a professor, you can have other roles in academia such as a dean, university president, you can work in industry for tech or pharma. It really just depends on your research focus. And we'll get into that with a later question that I get asked, but the point I want to make here is that the possibilities are endless with this degree. It probably is easier to talk about what you can't do. Actually, there's nothing you can't do. Like, nurses are needed everywhere. It's really just about your research skills and your personal skill set and how you market yourself. The second question that I get asked all the time is, what do nurse researchers study? And the truth is, that's also a question that I can never really answer because we can study anything. Nursing is really the study of just health and humans. So personally, I'm a health equity researcher. I study health behaviors, but through a health equity lens. My dissertation project is looking at how racism, depression, and the built environment influences the physical activity behaviors of Black millennial age men in Philadelphia. I had a roommate who studied Black nurse history, and I have someone else in my cohort who studies end of life and psychedelics. I really want people to know how much work nurse researchers are doing out there in the world and how influential that they are. And I want nurses, other nurses, even if you decide not to get a PhD, to look into research and see where you could fit in, because there's so much work to be done. So many people are doing innovative work. I usually compare a PhD in nursing to a PhD in public health, just because public health encompasses so many different things that I often meet public health researchers who do similar work to me or similar work to some of my peers. Whether it's racism's implications on health, whether it's something's historical implications on health, whether it's the impacts of nurse migration. The nursing shortage is also another hot topic, which we can talk about later, but the nursing shortage is low-key not real. It's a systemic issue that we can talk about another time. But there's literally unlimited amounts of research to be done, even on a global scale, which is part of my consulting work with Haiti. I'm doing some really cool projects that I want to talk to you guys about, but to keep this video on track, we'll go to question number 3 that I get asked a lot, and that is, how do I survive? Getting a PhD is very time consuming, and most disciplines have to survive just off of their funding. So full transparency, through the University of Pennsylvania, I am fully funded, meaning my tuition is paid for. They also give me health insurance, and then they give me $38,000, which ends up being taxed. A lot of people apply for outside grants, which I did. I have a recurring grant through a program called the Minority Fellowship Program, which is a partnership between SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Association, and the ANA, the American Nurses Association, and they give me $22,000 a year. So together that's $60,000. I also work PRN, nurse life hack. I'll probably never work as a staff nurse ever again, as long as PRN stays what it is. Also, I mean, I'm getting a PhD, so I'll probably be doing something else. But if you can find benefits elsewhere, working PRN is really a game changer, or travel nursing. So with that being said, I do live in Northern Virginia, which is really expensive. My basic needs probably run me 40K a year between taxes, car, rent, food, and gas, like, period. So obviously the funding that I received through school wouldn't be enough. So throughout this program, I've learned how to invest. Actually, I was investing starting in nursing school, but I learned how to trade options. I invested in crypto and stocks in nursing school, which I've been able to use some of those profits while in nursing school during times that I wasn't working. I've worked PRN, I've worked as a travel nurse, I've done freelance work just as a consultant, and that's really what it is. If you really want to maintain your lifestyle, because getting a PhD is a sacrifice. When I started, they were paying nurses $10K a week to go to Texas, but I was in Philly learning how to do research. So it is a financial sacrifice, but there's ways to go around it and maintain your lifestyle. Actually, my lifestyle has elevated since I've started my program, and it's just because I'm a hustler. Like, if you know Zoe for real, you know we love some money. Like, you're not a Zoe if you've never worked 80 hours a week before in your life. And that Jamaicans are known for that too. And now Nigerians, they work hard. That's really it. Like, just being a hustler. I rarely answer that question, to be honest, though, because sometimes I feel like people ask it in such a backhanded way. Like, recently somebody said to me, like, Rashida, what do you do for money? Because you don't work. Like, are you watching me? I'm literally always working in some capacity. If I'm not physically at work, I am strategizing. If I'm not strategizing, I am doing my research. If I'm not doing my research, I'm being a TA, because that's how I earn my funding. Probably the most annoying question that I get, but yes, funding is king, grants are king. If you're looking into getting into a PhD program, or if you're in a PhD program now, definitely look into grants. They have been a game changer for me. And the ANA and my funding and SAMHSA, all that is just my consistent funding. But I have applied for smaller grants. Sometimes I'll get 300 here, 500 there, and it adds up. The third question that I get all the time is, how long does it take to complete a nursing PhD? So minimum 3 years. It can take longer depending on your research interest, depending on the university that you attend, depending on life circumstances. So it really does depend, but it's a minimum 3 years, and you don't need a master's to get a PhD. So let's say you're a first degree nurse and you got your bachelor's and you're a nurse at 22 years old. If you do a secondary analysis, meaning you do not collect your own data, you work off of somebody else's data or research that was already done before, you can finish in 3 years, and in 7 years, boom, you're a doctor. If not, some of us, our roads to becoming a nursing PhD have not been as linear. I feel like nothing in my life has been linear. So that wasn't the case for me, and I am doing my own research, which is why I am still here after 4 years. But God willing, I will be defending in early fall, so I will be done in 4 years and some change. But everyone's journey is different. If we're talking about minimums, 3 years. The other question that I get is, what's the difference between a PhD and a DNP? So I've made a video on this, so please click the video and watch it to learn about the differences in more detail. But the overall difference is that a PhD prepared nurse is focused more on learning about research, how to identify good research, so really how to critique research. It's all about becoming a researcher. So in nursing school, we always heard, oh, nursing school is about teaching you how to think like a nurse. Getting a nursing PhD is training you on how to think like a research nurse, or even just a researcher, because we're already nurses and I already think like a nurse. So now I am learning and continuing to learn how to think like a PhD prepared nurse. Whereas the DNP is a clinical degree. That's more so for people who want to work clinically. When you think of a PhD prepared nurse, think research. When you think of a DNP prepared nurse, think clinical. However, there can be overlapping. I know some people with DNPs who are in the research world, and there are some people with PhDs that have chosen to stay clinical. But that's the overall primary difference between the two. And now question number 5. Is it worth it? I don't know. Some days I'm so happy to be here. Most days I've been loving the journey. I've grown a lot through this program. I think we've all grown a lot the past couple of years. I started in 2020. That says enough. Everything I mentioned in terms of it being time consuming, so missing birthdays, weddings, etc. In terms of having to make financial sacrifices, that's very real. Yes, I'm a hustler, and still, like, I wouldn't have to hustle so hard if I wasn't in this program. So there's days where I'm unsure about my decision to be in a PhD program, and that's full transparency. I always say I'm always going to be honest with you guys. Reasons why aren't just unique to getting a PhD though. They're just unique to really becoming an expert at something. Anyone who's truly an expert at anything has to make sacrifices, and there's so much around instant gratification and micro learning, just learning little by little and little things about big subjects, right? Like, people will watch a 5-minute video and think that they're an expert on something and can have arguments about it and talk about it all the time, and that's just not the case. Anything you really want to be an expert at, you're going to have to make sacrifices for. And the playing field is not leveled for all of us, so some of us have to make more sacrifices than others. So in terms of if it's worth it, I'm thankful to be in this space. I know this is where I'm meant to be, and I'm excited to be able to build a legacy for my family. Because of me, if I have children or even my nieces and nephews, they are called pen legacies. People who look like me historically aren't called pen legacies. So yeah, I'm very proud to be here. I just can't tell anyone if it's worth it yet. Definitely have some high days and some low days. But yeah, on that note, those are the 5 frequently asked questions that I get, and also the most honest answers that I can give you about my experience as a PhD candidate and a PhD student. But if there are any other PhD prepared nurses watching, or anyone who's pursuing a PhD, if you have any thoughts or any of your own answers to those questions, please leave it in the comment section. If you have any additional questions, also leave those in the comment section, and I'll try my best to answer them all, or if needed, I'll make another video. All right, guys.